We are sophisticated, refined, and the part of refinement comes also from the balance of our aesthetic.
Hallo zusammen, wir melden uns hier von der Watches & Wonders in Genf 2024 und wir sprechen heute mit dem CEO von Parmigiani Fleurier, Guido Terreni.
Hello Rüdiger, how are you?
I'm good. Guido, what about you? How is the fair being so far?
So far so good. First day, very excitement around the brand, and we're happy for the appreciation of our products.
Yeah. So you disclosed one of the novelties before.
Yes.
So the only thing I knew before I came here was that you did the Tonda PF no date.
No date.
And we will talk about the very big novelty later on. So you started with the Tonda PF 2.5 years ago. I think the idea behind was to show what is the essence of the brand of Parmigiani. In fact, you started 3 years ago,
Yep.
and you told me then when you started you were looking for the essence of the brand for different characterization or characteristics. So when the Tonda PF came out, it was a very clean watch, very reduced. Purity
Yep.
was one of the essences, I think. And so you did almost everything to show the guilloche pattern on the dial with reduced minute indexes. You abolished the name
lettering,
Parmigiani, yes, and used the smaller logo that Michel Parmigiani had created some years ago, and you even put skeletonized hands on the dial, but you kept the date.
Yep.
You kept the date, so that was something where you could argue maybe is it a bit superfluous? Should you also abolish the date or not? I think you had these conversations.
Yes.
A lot. Of course, you could argue the date is something of a counterbalance to the logo at 12 o'clock. So now the Tonda PF comes out without a date. How did that come?
It's very simple. I mean, I think there is I don't know if it's a religion in watchmaking, but there are people who like the date and there are people who prefer not to have it. And this makes a debate, which is an eternal debate. Date, no date, eternal debate. And we wanted to look at the watch and see how it looks without the date, and that's what we did. So we're offering, instead of doing a different color on our best sellers, we prefer to have always a twist and to have a reason also mechanically to show a different nuance. And the purity of the PF grows on you. And I think when we designed the Tonda PF in 2021, even for us it was a little bit too pure, and we kept the date as a counterbalance of the logo that was at 12 o'clock. But effectively speaking, it's very nice also without. Mm-hmm. And the first one that was without was the GMT for a specific reason, because when you're traveling, you don't want the date to change at your home time, but you want the date to change at your traveling time. And so we took it out, and aesthetically it was very refined, very pure. So we decided to give this opportunity, and we coupled it with the golden sienna color, which is a color specifically developed for us in our palette, mm-hmm, which is very subtle, and it changes light according to the light of the day. If you have a cloudy day or a sunny day, there is a life in that dial, which makes it very interesting. It goes from a salmon color to a more sandy color. It depends on the light. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to see.
That is very interesting. And this change of color that you just mentioned, does it come also from the guilloche?
The light is reflected by the surface, so of course the guilloche interferes and allows you to see this. But I think it's really the Pantone that we chose that has inside some brown, some yellow, some rose, mm-hmm, and all this together makes it that it's very lively.
Yeah.
And it fits with every outfit. Those colors are chosen because whatever color you're wearing, it fits with a blue, it fits with any color.
Yeah. So it's the first time actually that you have this kind of color within the Tonda PF.
Yeah.
Where did you get the idea from to that special hue?
Well, the mood is always inspired by these subtle colors that have to last for a long time. They have to be discreet, not in your face, never flashy. Our inspiration is always the palette of Le Corbusier, which is a Swiss architect that in 1931 studied the impact on our mood, obviously applied to homes, of certain colors, and the palette of Le Corbusier is extremely modern, even if it's almost 100 years old.
Yeah.
And we're not literally taking those colors, we're giving our touch to that palette. But we started with quite dark tones. The warm gray of the first micro auto is a quite dark one, the Milano blue also. If you go, and then on the imperial red of Laxiali is also quite deep, no? And the fact that we are opening up to a lighter palette is very nice to see the whole collection in the counter very much more lively, and it's very serene. I like very much this complement to the collection.
So you would say on the Tonda PF the color always has to be discreet, not a...
On old Parmigiani.
Yeah.
Discretion is part of us. We are not loud, we are sophisticated, refined, and the part of refinement comes also from the balance of our aesthetic.
When you put the Tonda PF no date and the normal regular Tonda PF next to each other, where do you see more purity?
Well, both are very, as I said, there are preferences for who likes the date and who doesn't. So it's more in the eyes of the customer that you have to ask the question. So without the date is the essentiality at the most, if you want. But the date is a nice complement because it keeps the balance with the elements that are on the dial. So to me it's a 50-50 kind of approach. And we will see the appreciation of the no date versus the date. Obviously the color has also an effect, so we cannot say it's not comparable. And that's part of the beauty, because we're not just giving another variant, we're giving another emotion to that. So it's a different experience.
And speaking of materials, for the Tonda PF you have used gold, platinum, stainless steel.
Yeah.
So this you will continue.
That's about it for the moment, yes. I think it's a very, we're not an extravagant brand, so we don't like to play it strange, but we're not either following a conventional rule. So it is a non-mainstream watch done with a twist, which the twist is understatement and balance of the creativity.
So would maybe titanium also be an idea?
Don't know. This
Okay.
year, no.
I think so. So, and now the Toric.
The Toric, yes.
So, of course, we know that the Toric was there, has been there for years with
Absolutely.
in Parmigiani. It was, I think, the first collection
collection,
that
yes.
that they introduced in the 1990s. So now you have recreated it, so to speak, and of course it somehow reminded me of the Tonda PF because it's also very clear, very clean, very subtle, and it's a round watch.
Yeah.
It's also a round watch, but of course with differences. So could you maybe explain the differences between the Tonda PF and the new Toric?
Well, first of all, since we did the relaunch of the Tonda PF, the brand has grown unexpectedly for me. It's a great journey from the worst year of our history, was 2020, to the best year of our history, that was 2023. We did this by the success of the Tonda PF, which is what everybody calls a sport elegant watch or a sport chic watch, which is a specific segment of watchmaking. Parmigiani cannot be a mono-product brand. Parmigiani is much more than that. Yeah. It was born with a dress watch, which was the Toric. And in watchmaking, the dress watches are the ones who allow to express with the grand complications, with complication that you cannot put on a sport watch, because a sport watch arrives to a certain level of watchmaking. So our customers and our clients, when they saw the PF, they fell in love with the PF, and a lot of them wrote to us through Instagrams, comments, etc. Oh, could you please do the same work of refreshing such a beautiful watch as the Toric? of course, it's a much more difficult exercise because when you're designing a dress watch, it's an exercise which is very subtle, and it follows how people dress. And I'm not talking about a fashion approach because we're not a fashion brand. We're not there for a product for a season or two. So if you look at how mankind, gentlemen, are wearing in an elegant attire, we are basically following the rules that the English bourgeoisie set at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So the suit, the shirt, and the black was a color of extreme refinement and elegant because it was very difficult to keep the black after washing. So black became very gray. So only the rich could wear black. That's why a tuxedo is in black. No? And this was true until 150 years, for 150 years. So 100 years later, at the beginning of last century, the watch moves from the pocket to the wrist. And pocket watches were was a jewel for men, but they were hidden in this very severe and minimal outfit, very prestigious. But when it gets out of the pocket and it goes on the wrist, it has to fit. So dress watches for 100 years have been on glossy black alligator straps with a white face, platinum, white gold. If you were really extravagant, you put some brown, that's it. No? And then the codes of this elegance that are very conservative and very stiff have followed on watchmaking for 100 years, basically. Until what happens in the beginning of the last century, the new economy, West Coast, starts to break this rule, this uniform that men used. So we start being decontracted, we start wearing more informal, even casual. So the American brought a dress-down approach to a much more cool and comfortable way of wearing. What is happening now is that there is a rediscovery of a younger public that is getting interested in tailoring, in not the fashion victim that has to buy what's new from the brands. No, it's really deep knowledge of sartorial approach, which is not stiff. You don't wear a tie anymore, you probably don't even wear a shirt with it, but you appreciate the fabric, you appreciate the making, and you start wearing colors that are also more diverse, serene, more natural. No? So our role within the watchmaking is to understand what is there to stand, what is there to stay for a long time, and what is qualitative, what is well made, what is traditional, but also what can fit this evolution of a younger clientele which is wealthy and which is making personal choices. No? So the result is this. This is the Tonda PF, Petite Seconde in platinum, and every element is balanced, but is respecting the high standards of watchmaking. First of all, only manual movement, because the beauty of mechanics, you can see it not. You have to take out the rotor that covers now the mechanics, and the movement that you have behind is stunning. Only gold movements. There are very few that address this in a collection on a serial product.
You mean the plates and the bridges
are all made of gold? Are all made in gold.
Yeah.
Finishings are superb. The Côte de Fleurier finishing is a double Côte de Genève crossed that Michel designed 20 years ago, but on a wider scale. We made it a little bit smaller. And then you have the crown that has to be big because you have to have the pleasure of feeling the mechanic and winding it. And then you get to the face. And now, when you look at the face, you see the brand, no? Because the architecture of the dial is very similar to the PF, but it's completely different the mood that the watch has. So I think the brand has to express his own style, his own identity. A lot of brands are doing one collection then another, and you don't recognize the brand within one collection or the other. Here, the style of Parmigiani is there. It's very subtle, it's very elegant, it's very understated. And then the dial becomes a piece of art because it's, again, a dial in gold, so it's not brass. And I asked Michel, which is that traditional technique that could make me treat that surface in a way that is not invasive, like the Grand Doge done small, that you don't see, almost mistake for a plain dial. Here, it's a grenet main. Grenet is a technique done by hand that is basically a paste done with several ingredients that Michel taught our dial maker to do again, because he had this technique in these restoration pieces. And you use a brush by hand, and the brush, according to how thick the brush is and how hard it is, the grains are wider or smaller. So these are quite thin because we don't want it to be too present. And you start brushing the gold.
So everything is done by hand?
Everything is done by hand. And then what happens, you have this shape that is, you remember those dials in the 50s and the 60s, they used to dive at the end of the minute scale. Now they were chevet, it's called chevet dials, flat, and then they dive with a curve. That would have been a vintage look. We didn't want a vintage look, so I asked my designer to reinterpret that movement, and we came up with a step. So you have an outline, and then you have a minute scale which is curved, on which you apply the golden indexes. So this outline is under the treatment. So basically you repolish the outline and you take out the color and the grenet treatment to make the gold come out and outline this on the counter. And even the minutes that you see, these 4 markers are drilled, so it's the gold underneath that comes alive again, taking out the treatment on top. And it's a very delicate operation because you don't want the treatment to peel off. So it's very expensive, very difficult to make, and it gives you this patina of a surface which is artisanal. It's not anymore. 9 dials out of 10 grenet today are made by laser.
Yeah.
So the laser is doing the surface. No, here is really at the traditional way.
And did you do the same with a small second?
Yes, the small second, the outline is again the gold outside. So everything is very. And the colors that we chose are the palette that you have. Here we have a cerulean gray. It's a green with some gray in it. Here we have a sandy gold, and we coupled it with a bracelet which is very neutral. It's a Nabouk finishing, and then you have the stitching that comes from a tailoring tradition. It's called the punta mano. They're very distant from one another. It's a nice aesthetic touch that comes from the sartorial approach. And then, like Michel wants an Ardillon buckle, because when you open the back and you want to look at the movement, you don't want a blade in the middle of your eyes, and that's how you can admire all the work that it is. So this will come. It's not numbered, but it's limited in production due to the difficulty of doing this beautiful pieces, and it gives you a collection which is consistent with the brand. And it will come also in gold, because we have a beautiful gold chrono rattrapante, which is the chrono, the split second. It's a skeletonized movement. Signature of Michel. You have also here next to the bell. We put the signature of Michel. All the movements in gold are signed, and you have the split second chronograph, manually winded 5 Hz double column wheel, which is a piece of art on the Toric collection too, and that is a limited edition of 30 pieces.
Great. So when you get the notion of the Tonda PF being a little bit sporty in comparison to the Toric, then it's clear, I think, that you have automatic movement with the Tonda PF. Here you have the manual wound movement, and also that you have maybe a bracelet with another clasp. Than what you said here. So here is more the need to see the movement as in the classical watch. What I find interesting though is that you would maybe think of the Toric having a guilloche dial and not the Tonda PF.
Yeah, but it's part of the mood that we wanted. We really wanted a fresh move on this watch, and we wanted also to have a different mood from the Tonda PF. So it's not that you copy paste what you do on everything. You have to be consistent, but you have to be also specific. So the beauty is the balance of this, and I think you can recognize the style of the brand. This is a very less versatile watch than a sport watch, because you can swim with a sport watch. You can use it every day. So it's evident the sport chic watch trend will stay for long, but this is also a very important part of the industry, and also on noble movements, noble complications. Price points is a bit higher because of the craft that goes in. It's not industrial, it's really artisanal, and so that's a nice compliment and will be totally additional to the Tonda PF.
I was thinking of why didn't you use the name Toric PF, like the Tonda PF?
This was a big question that we had, but I don't want every collection to become PF because it's like saying Parmigiani Fleurier twice.
Yeah.
So the Toric is the first collection that we were born with. The PF had to be a differentiating point from the Tonda GT. So we use the Tonda PF to state the new era of the brand, but now it's evident that we are consistent with that. We don't need to replicate descriptively everything we do. It's understood.
Yeah, yeah. Great, so congratulations. I think it's a next big step.
Yep.
So 3 years only that you have been with the brand.
Yep.
A lot has happened in this time.
Yep.
How would you explain, or can you maybe explain how the brand developed? Also, you mentioned that the figures have risen up, and I think also the demand has been incredible. So it was not so easy for you to keep up with production?
No, it was totally unexpected, and I think 22 was a very hard year because we created a desire, and but we also created a frustration because people were not expecting to wait 12, 14 months for a Parmigiani, you know? And we didn't have stock. We started 2023 with no stock in the counters, and we couldn't show the product, so it was really necessary to step up production to allow to fulfill our requests and not to have people withdrawing from their waiting list, because obviously it happened because not everybody wants to wait 12 months. But the objective has always been not to create desire by withholding the product. I always say that I wish my watches are on the wrist of people because they are the most important ambassadors, our clients. That's who we have to grow organically with that. So I would love to have a waiting list which is around 2 or 3 months is more than enough, and we are there on the GMT, on the micro rotor. It's where we are now. Now we have to be prudent because the industry has changed. It's not the speculation bubble that after COVID rose the sell-in and the sell-out of watches that didn't reach the wrist of a person because they were for speculators that want to make money through that. Yeah. Now the prices of the hyped watches are going down, so people are selling that. So there's a lot of stock beyond the stock in the counters. There's also a lot of stock that has to be sold on certain brands that is limiting the cash of our dealers, and they are paying much more attention. So this is a general mood external to Parmigiani. We always deliver only if you sell out your watch, you get the second one. So we are very right with the stock that we have in our counters. But this is an external factor that is affecting the whole industry, and we will see, hopefully it will last a few months, but it's important that the stock in the world is aligned with the demand.
What do you foresee and what do you plan for the next years?
We continue to go on this direction because it's very clear and very well understood. Both collections are two babies. We are in an industry that has watches that are over 100 years old, so we are 2 years, and this will be born in September, so it's not even yet delivered, and so we have to be consistent, be disciplined. We will make sure that what we launch is relevant, so for sure we will work on innovation, on movements, where premieres remain a theme, but we will also nourish the Toric with other movements and building a collection around this.
Very beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guido.
Thank you.
And have a good fair.